Okay, let's talk Snapchat. It's on everybody's lips at the moment. Media are pounding it to us. Brokers are reminding us we can trade Snapchat through them. And, it's the biggest IPO since Alibaba. So what did you expect? Now, one thing to look at here, and let me just say a caveat before we talk about it, is that, listen, from a trading perspective, all I'm interested in is making money. I don't care about being right. I don't care about being wrong. I don't care about my ego. I've learned a long time ago, I started in 2001. I learned a long time ago to leave the ego to one side. Trade when you've got an edge. If that's a one-day edge, fine. If that's a multi-week edge, fine, whatever. Go and check out the previous videos where I talked about trading an IPO, some specific strategies and kind of chart patterns that you can use as a general approach, and then sort of drill down a bit more to get a bit more of a setup. So that's kind of looking into it a bit more. But let's look at Snapchat and the numbers and stuff. So the first things first is that, listen, it is overvalued. From a classical perspective of how you value a stock, it's overvalued. But that doesn't matter. Amazon is overvalued. Amazon's trading at 170 times earnings. It's ridiculously overvalued if you're looking at it like that. But if you were to short that, you would have got your face ripped cleanly off, just like Netflix. So I think you've got to put that to one side. You've got to look and you've got to say, okay, two things are going to happen with an overvalued stock. And this is exactly the case of with Amazon. Get my drawing pen out. Assume that's the valuation there, and this is the stock here. Overvalued, one thing is going to happen. One thing is the valuation is going to decrease to the stock, and that's going to be where your short comes in, or the stock's going to do well. The company's going to do well. It's going to come up and increase the valuation. In actual fact, as per Amazon, you're going to keep this kind of premium as the whole price moves up because people are expecting it more and more and more. So you've got to be a bit cautious of looking at it and saying, yeah, it's overvalued. And especially, if you're not using Snapchat. And by the way, I always urge you to download these things and just check them out. Not expecting people to use Snapchat. It's probably away from most demographic of the people who are watching this. But, it's interesting to see what it's all about and see what the features are and kind of get a feel for it, because then you get a little more of an idea of what you're trading. Even though it makes no relevance to your trading setup, it doesn't matter whether we're looking at Snapchat, crude or gold here. But, I think it's nice to have a background of what the actual thing is you're talking about. And also it makes sense when people talk in the news. I think actually half the guys who were talking never downloaded it, don't know what's going on. Interestingly, a couple of facts, right, which I thought were interesting, is that at the moment it's really cheap to advertise on Snapchat. For about $5, you can get a little geo-targeted area. So let's say you were holding a barbecue or something at your house, or perhaps you want to do something a bit more commercial. Let's say you were holding an event at a club, for example, for kids from between 18 and kind of 25, something like that. You can buy a geo-fenced area and basically have it so that anybody using Snapchat can add your filter, Bill's Bar or whatever it may be, and that shows up on the Snapchat. And at the moment, that is dirt cheap. Now, you know what? That kind of thing interests me because I think, yes, this is overvalued, but if that's the price of it, and obviously they're losing money at the moment. We understand that they're losing a lot of money, which is why people say it's ridiculously valued, and analysts are giving $10 price targets. And you know what? It may well hit that. We'll talk about that in a second. But when you see things like this and you see, well, actually, they've kind of got the ability to monetize this product, unlike Twitter, who are struggling to monetize the product. And Facebook are doing really well monetizing the mobile. So maybe Snapchat has got some legs. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting. I wanted to share that with you. Let's look from a trading perspective. Okay, the big levels that have got to be looked at. For me, there's a couple of things to be aware of with Snapchat here. One is that everybody thinks it's overvalued. Everybody. I don't think any analyst has put a buy rating on it. So to me, that becomes quite exciting, because if we should break above this 29, which by the way has now become a very key level, 29, 29.50, nice zone, that's the bullish zone. If we start breaking above that, break above it, consolidate above it on day one or day two, hold above it and close above it, that to me then opens up a long opportunity for a 2 or 3 day trend move. And that's what I've got on my pad for a play. The other one is, and this comes back from a video before, kind of a week or two in, you get a drift lower, it takes out the low, the media turns negative on it, the sentiment turns really negative, I knew it was overpriced, blah, blah, blah. That then to bottom out a little bit, just sort of consolidates, then starts pushing up. And to me, if I find that, I'm going to take a trade on that. It's low risk reward. And by the way, this is not an advice, it's just how I'm going to position. It's low risk as long as you can quantify the risk on it. I don't care what I think about Snapchat. I just think that's a nice play. And actually, if you look at previous IPO charts, that has worked out quite well. Put the stop in there and then look to kind of run that up for a retest of highs or something like that. You'll have to depend on the situation at the time. But that's the way I'm looking at it. So at the moment, it's not a bad day trading vehicle if you're that way inclined. But for me, I want to see. We've got lines in the sand, haven't we, guys? You've got the low here. Oh, was it gone yellow? Let me go back to red, much clearer for you. Okay, low here at 23.50. Obviously, the first day's high is a key one at 26. We did rip through it today, but we tried to pull back and hold it. Couldn't quite. The previous high there, and then we've got this little cluster here, which again is interesting. So let's summarize that. 27, 29 to 29.50, 26 temporarily. A little bit of support around here at 24.50 and then down here at 23.50. I know that's quite a lot, but at least we can bracket it now and start to see what's going on. For me, I'm going to steer clear of looking at shorts. Now, I know obviously if we go through lows and we start congesting and holding under low, the chances of us pushing low are quite high. However, just looking at previous IPO stocks and the way they've traded, and also the fact it's difficult to borrow and a lot of spread betting firms don't have it yet and all those kind of things, I prefer to wait, let it run and then trying to find a long off that, or if we break to highs and hold above the high, then look for a further push through. At the moment, this is just chop, guys. This is just people going backwards and forwards. Institutions got their allocation. Maybe they want to top it up a little bit. Maybe they don't. We'll start to see some sort of trend coming in. But my biggest takeaway, I think, is forget about what the media is saying. The media is saying it's overvalued. The media is saying this. They will shift with how the market moves. And we've got to remember the one thing is that at the end of the day, the IPO price was an agreed price. It's not a finger in the air job and they decided to sell it at that price. They've put feelers out and they've asked the questions to the investment banks and the institutions and said, hey, do you want to buy a Snapchat stock at this valuation? And ultimately, enough people have said yes. So we've got to accept that that is the fair price. Whether that changes over the next few weeks or few months remains to be seen. But from my perspective, I just want to trade what I see, keep my levels on, and look for an opportunity where that supply-demand really shifts in one way or the other. Or the sentiment becomes so extreme to the downside and the market pushes lower that it becomes a really good opportunity to take along and just take the opposing view of that and then look for a push to the upside. So there's a couple of ways of framing that. And again, I urge you to go back and look at the previous videos to see the intricate setups with that. There was one based on the break of the high here, and there's one, as I talked about, with a sort of 2 or 3 week or 1 to 2 week dip buy. But nevertheless, it's worth watching. Even if you're not trading, it's very interesting because there's going to be a lot of IPOs coming out this year. And it's pure supply demand. And it's so funny seeing the analysts trying to make head or tail of it. But in reality, it's just literally buyers and sellers agreeing on price. But as soon as they come out of sync, guys, and as soon as we get moved one way or the other, then that presents our opportunity.